name is Sarah Turney, and this is Voices for Justice. My sister, Alissa Turney, went missing from Phoenix, Arizona. She was 17 and I was 12.
Sarah Turney's older sister, Alissa, went missing in May of the year 2001. The case went cold until 2008, when allegations came out that Michael Turney, Sarah's father and Alissa's stepfather, had sexually abused Alissa. During a search warrant, police found a massive stash of pipe bombs in Turney's home. He pled guilty and served nearly 10 years in prison.
The police used this time to build their case and planned to prosecute my father for Alissa's murder when he was released from his 10-year sentence. But then they didn't prosecute at all, and they told me that my best chance was to get media exposure.
Despite Sarah's own detective work and efforts for media coverage, Alissa's story was barely getting any attention. And in the fall of 2017, she decided to secretly record her conversations with her father.
Just come out and say what happened.
There's nothing to confess to. Nothing happened.
I was the last of your 6 children to think you did this. And you raised me to do what's good, and it's backfiring on you.
In 2019, Sarah released a podcast, Voices for Justice. Her goal, to put a spotlight on Alissa's disappearance. In one episode, Michael Turney seems to allude to a potential deathbed confession.
Be there at the deathbed, Sarah, and I'll give you all the honest answers you want to hear.
Why don't you give them to me now?
Because you got them now.
A year later, in May of 2020, Sarah started posting on TikTok, and her page went viral.
It's not easy being the disappointment of the family, but someone had to do it. So here the I am.
Whoa, yeah. I got a new life. You would hardly recognize me.
3 months later, Michael Turney was arrested.
My father's been arrested for Alissa's murder.
To Alissa's sister, Sarah Turney, your perseverance and commitment to finding justice for your sister, Alissa, is a testament to the love of a sister.
I wanted to come on here and say thank you to all of you. Without you guys, this would have never happened. Without your support, without making this podcast successful, without you liking on social media and sharing her story and keeping this pressure on, it would have never happened.
What a story, what a case, and what a little sister. Wow. All right, well, Sarah Turney back on that witness stand today inside the courtroom. There she is. So to help fill us in on today's development, she was in the courtroom all day. Joining us live, Court TV legal correspondent Julia Janae from Maricopa County tonight. Julia, where do you want to start? You want to start with the handwritten note?
You know, there's so much that happened today. Yes, Vinny, the note was a big deal for these jurors. It was their first time that they saw it. And when you think about the investigation and how long it took for this case to go from a missing persons case to a murder case, this note is likely one of the strongest things that Michael Turney could hold up to say, my daughter ran away. Because this note said that after you drop me off at school, Dad, I am leaving town. I'm going to California. I'm taking $300 from you. And little sister Sarah, this is what you wanted, so you should be happy. It's not disputed that this is in her handwriting. The prosecution admits it's in her handwriting, and it is not a situation where we're going to have handwriting analysts come in and try and dispute that. The defense says this says it all. This is what happened. This shows you clearly what happened. But the prosecution leaves room for ambiguity. They say we don't know when this letter was written. We also don't know if both parts of it, the signature and the body of the letter, were written at the same time. And Sarah Turney has mentioned that her sister didn't often sign her name with a capital A, that she actually signed it with a lowercase a. So at this point, it's going to be for this jury to decide if this note tells the truth of what happened, or if this is a note that Alissa wrote during a time that she was thinking about leaving but didn't do anything with that note.
Now, another part, to me, this whole story is about the relationship of these sisters and how, you know, the love, and that's how we ended up where we are now. But Sarah had to talk about Alissa being overly trusting to a certain extent.
Yeah, overly trusting to strangers, and under cross-examination, Sarah had to answer a lot of tough cross-examination questions because she had been interviewed back in 2008, about 7 years after her sister went missing. And she said a lot of things about issues that her sister had. She admitted to them fighting a lot, that her sister was unpredictable, that she sometimes got drunk, maybe 1 or 2 times that she remembers, but also smoked marijuana. Take a listen to some of what she had to admit under cross-examination about her sister's interaction with other people that she didn't know.
It's convenient, the things that you remember and don't.
Objection, argumentative.
Sustained.
You gave an example when she was with friends that she would get into cars with strangers to go to parties even though her friends didn't want to. Is that something that you told Detective Anderson?
That's what I was told, yes.
You said that Alissa was trusting to a fault.
I would consider her extremely trusting, yes.
You said that she had difficulty foreseeing the consequences of her actions.
Yes, I'm sure.
You told Detective Anderson that she would give her phone number and addresses to strangers.
That's what I was told.
That's what you told Detective Anderson, correct?
Yes.
Sarah handled those difficult questions really well. She stayed very cool and calm on cross-examination and really even seemed cordial with the defense when they constantly would ask her to listen back to her interview in 2008 to refresh her recollection. All in all, 2 days on the stand for Sarah Turney, and she is back in the courtroom, in the gallery, sitting and watching everything unfold.
Well, it's composure. She's comfortable, and when you're telling the truth, it becomes even easier. Not that any of it's easy, but becomes less difficult, I guess is a better way to say it. What about this deathbed? To me, this is, I think, something that could really resonate with this jury. The truth coming out on the defendant's at his deathbed. He's going to make some sort of confession here.
This is the secret recording that Sarah put on her podcast that really seemed to be the thing. I mean, it's even being considered the alleged confession inside of the courtroom, according to what the defense says Sarah is calling this moment. Here's a listen first to how she characterized it on direct. This was before her father was arrested for her sister's murder, but after he had gotten out of prison for the pipe bomb incident where he was charged and sentenced to federal prison for 10 years. But take a listen to how she explained how everything came out.
Have you on occasion asked your father what happened to Alissa?
Many times.
Has he ever given you an answer?
He told me he'd tell me on his deathbed.
And when did he make that statement?
I met up with him at a Starbucks in October of 2017 to meet him face to face and finally get some answers.
Then on cross, defense attorney Jamie Jackson challenged whether that moment shouldn't be looked at in the light of all the other times that they say she was pushing for that confession. Here's that.
You didn't tell the jury the complete statement, did you?
I mean, we can play it if you'd like.
Well, he said other things about recording about that confession, correct? That you call a confession, correct?
He also said that he would confess if the state gave him lethal injection within 10 days.
And he also denied 50 times to you over the years that he's not going to confess to something he didn't do, correct?
It's varied throughout the years. Something he says he doesn't remember doing is something he told me.
You said, you just specified it there, that he would get the lethal injection. He actually said, if that quote is correct, he actually said, if this is what you want me to do, if it makes you feel happy, correct? Is it going to make you feel better? That's what he said, correct?
No, I don't believe it was phrased like that.
Now, that recording we didn't hear, Vinny. I think it may be already at some point in this trial been deemed inadmissible. She mentioned, though, if you want to hear the recording, you can. So jurors may know that there's a recording of it, but they did not hear it in court today.
Yeah, they'll definitely want to hear it. There's no doubt. If they know there's a recording, they want to hear it. So how about the rest of the cross-examination?
You know, it was intense throughout. They did not let up in terms of what they asked her about when it came to her sister and whether her sister did want to leave. There was a really explosive part where they asked her about jewelry that her mother left behind, their deceased mother left behind for Alissa. And there was apparently at some point that Sarah said Alissa wouldn't have left home without that jewelry. But the defense attorney had some sort of information that she had actually said that that jewelry had been stolen years before. And they were asking her, what is it? Which is it? Are you lying then or are you lying now? But again, she didn't budge. The jury, though, they had questions for Sarah. They are able to do that in Arizona, and they asked her about whether or not her father had a job, whether he had a girlfriend, clubs, a church. She responded that he really kept to himself, stayed home a lot, only had one girlfriend that had been her teacher, but that there was an incident. We didn't hear anything more about it, and that relationship didn't work out.
All right. Julie Janae, live tonight, Maricopa County. Thank you so much. Let's bring back in our think tank. Al Wunsch, Darnell Crossland, Jennifer Brandt with us. Darnell, you know, this one, he's the suspect the whole time, the entire time. I mean, the entire time. Do you think this deathbed confession is compelling?
Yes, I do. I think the situation here is that whether, in fact, the jury's going to have something that they can hang their hat on. And this young lady tried her hardest to be a voice for justice and bring this case to the forefront. And that happened. And you heard the police department thank her for it and applaud her for what she did. And now when she talks about the deathbed confession, it sounds like the jury now has something that they can say, we see some, where there's smoke, there's fire. And we see some type of credibility here. But I think it's going to have an impact.
Yeah, jury's not going to find out about those pipe bombs, though, Jennifer Brandt. That might be kind of useful to understand the true character of the man, but they won't get that. What are your thoughts about the strength of this case for prosecutors through this testimony of the victim's sister?
Well, I thought she did a great job. I mean, she did stay strong. As Julia said, she stayed calm and composed, and I think she stuck to her guns. She really was very firm in what she believes to be the truth. I think that helps a lot with the jury. She wasn't wavering at all. She didn't seem thrown by any of the questions that the prosecution asked, even though they were trying to poke holes in you know, her case and what she believes. So I think that, coupled with all the work that she's done up until this point to bring justice, to try to make sure there is justice for her sister, I think is telling. And so I think she did really, really well, as best that she could possibly do.
Al, I want you to take a look at this part of the cross-examination.
I think Jennifer meant the defense was poking holes.
Yes, sorry.
Gotcha. Thank you, Darnell.
Thanks, Darnell.
He's taking notes down in St. Bart's. All right, Al.
The obvious.
Al, take a listen to this part of the cross-examination. I want your reaction.
But she would have problems with comprehension and recall of memory, correct?
That's what I was told.
That's what you told Detective Anderson?
Because that's what I was told.
In any of those interviews with Detective Anderson, did you say, this is what my dad said? Yes or no?
I was brainwashed to believe a certain thing about my sister from my father.
Al?
Well,
do you like the defense screaming at Sarah? I mean, is that the way to approach this case? You're going to scream at Sarah?
No, it's not the way to approach this case, but it's a very weird case to begin with. And if you take a look with regards to, you know, the fact that, you know, they're saying that he says, well, on my deathbed, I'll tell you whatever you want to hear or whatever the situation is. That's a deathbed confession. It's not. It's the same thing that happens when someone says to you 50 times, did you do it? Did you do it? All right, fine, I did it. I mean, you just to get to a point where you're just so frustrated, you just throw out an answer. And of course, now I'm sure he's regretting he ever said that, but it doesn't necessarily mean it's true. And the fact that there's a note and the fact that there's some other stuff, they never found a body, they have nothing else to connect him. If this guy, I mean, the guy is obviously not the most normal person in the history of mankind, but he took full account for what he did with regards to these pipe bombs. And
after they
pled
found
guilty
him,
to that.
after they found him in his
how
house.
many people? How many times? Vince,
All right.
How many times do they find stuff on people and they still say, "I'm not guilty. I didn't do it."
Gotcha.
And they still
He's a stand-up guy, right? All right, here we go.
Stand-up con.
Up next.